And chapter 15 focuses on managing global systems. Here we emphasize the role of advanced networks and information systems in enabling the growth of global economic systems and global world order. Why do you think networks and IT advances make globalization more feasible? The text uses the example of the path to market for an Apple iPhone to illustrate what globalization means for an international firm, illustrated in our next slide. Apple designs the iPhone in the United States and relies on suppliers in the US, Germany, Italy, France, Japan, and South Korea for other parts. Much of the final assembly occurs in China. This slide discusses the strategy a firm should take in order to make a successful move towards globalization. Why would understanding the business drivers be the top consideration? Why is considering the technology platform the last consideration? The major dimensions for developing an international information systems architecture are the global environment, the corporate global strategies, the structure of the organization, the management and business processes, and the technology platform. This graphic illustrates the strategy for developing an international system. There are a variety of choices when determining a corporate global strategy. For example, you could sell to the globe from a domestic base or organize production and distribution around the world. Determining a global strategy means deciding what portions of the business are located globally. What would be the biggest factors in making this decision? The first strategic consideration in building an international system is to examine the global environment in terms of business drivers and challenges. This slide and the next two examine business drivers and challenges that lead industries toward global markets and competition. Can you describe global culture and how this influences internationalization? Can you explain what the global knowledge base is and how this has changed over the past half century? Can all industries benefit equally from globalization? Why or why not? This slide continues the discussion of the challenges to internationalization and looks at specific challenges that firms face. Can you define particularism and provide an example of it? How would particularism, regionalism, or nationalism affect the success of a business trying to globalize? What is transborder data flow? With the use of the internet, how is transborder data flow an issue? Another challenge discussed in the text is different accounting standards. How can accounting standards be different from country to country? This slide describes the reality of global information systems in use in typical businesses today. Few businesses that have begun to internationalize have top of the line systems and face powerful competition from those companies that do have truly international systems. Here we look at general ways business activities can be organized and the four main business strategies used by global companies. Here, the large X's show the dominant patterns, and the small x's show the emerging patterns. For instance, domestic exporters rely predominantly on centralized systems, but there's continual pressure and some development of decentralized systems in local marketing regions. This table shows which system configurations are typically used when a firm employs one of the four global strategies. The large X's again show the dominant patterns, whereas the small x's show the emerging pattern. The transnational has the most ambitious form of systems development using a singular global environment. This structure is most visible in financial services companies where the homogeneity of the product, so money instruments, seems to overcome cultural barriers. This slide discusses how a firm should organize itself for doing business on an international scale and offers three main principles to follow when developing a global company and information systems support structure. Can you explain the second principle? For local needs, there should be host country systems units. Regional systems units should handle systems development across national boundaries, but within major geographic regions. Transnational systems should create linkages across and between regional systems. What types of systems would serve local over regional needs? This slide describes a common scenario of a multinational company and the challenges it faces in trying to develop a transnational information system as it expands into Asian markets. What types of implementation problems can the company expect when it begins development? Can resistance be expected even from the IT departments in different countries? The text describes some likely reactions. Example, the foreign divisions will resist efforts to agree on common user requirements. US systems groups will not easily accept guidance from anyone recommending a transnational strategy, etc. This slide looks at the basic framework of a solution to implementing a transnational information system. What types of systems might be considered core systems? What types of systems might fall into partially coordinated category? What about the peripheral systems category? This slide outlines the steps in creating a successful global systems solution appropriate to the firm's goals and strategies. Can you think how a firm would determine its core business processes? What is meant by developing a common language to discuss the business? And why is this important? Can you define legitimacy? At the global level, there is far too much complexity to implement full scale, worldwide application changes. Agency and other coordination costs increase as the firm moves from local option systems towards regional and global systems. However, transaction costs of participating in global markets probably decrease as firms develop global systems. A sensible strategy is to reduce agency costs by developing only a few core global systems that are vital for global operations, leaving other systems in the hands of regional and local units. Here we continue the discussion of solutions to the management challenges. What types of difficulties might there be in having all units update software at the same time? Why do you think the text suggests that, as much as possible, raw power or commanding people should be avoided when dealing with user resistance? This slide and the next emphasize the types of technological rather than organizational challenges faced when building a global system. It is important to note that all units having the same hardware and operating software does not guarantee integration. Data standardization must also be enforced. For example, technical accounting terms such as the beginning and end of the fiscal year must be standardized. And here we continue the discussion of technology challenges in building global systems. Why do you think MIS and TPS are typically the most important applications? The percentage of the total population using the internet in developing countries is much smaller than in the US and Europe, but it is growing rapidly. And so here we show the percentage of population using the internet by region. Ultimately, it illustrates the lower penetration of internet usage in developing countries.